after that we'll talk more.
This is a jubilee year for Mission to the World, and for me too. I thank the Lord for the privilege of being in Acapulco for most of those 50 years, even with all the discomforts of the last 2 months. One of the greatest things about being a missionary in the same place for a long time is the opportunity to see the fruit and continuity of the work. Another advantage is to be able to share in the ups and downs of people's lives. After a brief rundown of what I've been doing for the last 6 years, this report will be mostly about the last 2 months of 2023, which, because of Hurricane Otis, was one of those down times, but with its own moments. In normal life, before October the 24th, my time was mostly divided between New Horizon Christian School and the Maranatha Theological Seminary, with a good bit dedicated to the Maranatha School of Music, a 1-week summer program we offer in 2 different locations. To start with the last activity, 2023 marked our 29th year in Acapulco and 8th in Ometepec. Our purpose is to prepare musicians who can serve in the worship of their local churches. Although for most students it will take several years, many churches do have music Sunday after Sunday as a result of the Institute. Besides the 9-hour days with teens and adults, we also have a 3-hour program for children. In 2020, Maranatha Bible Institute became Maranatha Theological Seminary. We moved up a level in academic requirements, went virtual because of COVID and later hybrid, and created 2 basic tracks. In the first track, students take 2-hour classes weekly. Most take 1 class at a time. However, a few do more and have the possibility of graduating in the not quite so distant future. The second track focuses on men interested in preparing for the ministry, although it is open to others as well. Students in this track study during the week and then meet with teachers Saturday from 8 to 2. Lord willing, in another year, we will be graduating first from this group, several of whom will be pursuing ordination. I continue to serve New Horizon Christian School as president of the board, chief fundraiser, chief dispenser of those funds, teacher of Christian foundations for the school teachers, and other odds and ends. This was our 23rd year, and we had 170 students enrolled from preschool to 9th grade. 6 years ago, when I made my last video, I talked about difficult years for New Horizon, beginning with an earthquake in 2013 that rendered our building unusable. That was followed by a year of less than ideal accommodations and the move to a large rental property that is still our home. What can I say now about the last 6 years? We've had smaller hurricanes and earthquakes that affected some of our families but didn't damage the school. A pandemic, which was very hard on our students and their teachers as well. And we are now dealing with the aftermath of a Category 5 hurricane that basically destroyed the city. Since it has been a real life changer, I'm going to talk a lot about that. I'll start with the town in general and then return to the school. Hurricane Otis took everyone by surprise. Until noon on October 24th, it was just a tropical storm, which is no big deal. Since it was headed directly toward us, we expected to get wet, but no more. However, by 10:30 that night, it was the most powerful hurricane ever recorded in the North Pacific, with winds in its gigantic tornado-like center of over 200 miles per hour. And it actually hit us twice. We had over 2 hours of relentless pounding and roaring, and when it was over, the devastation was indescribable. As I looked out of my window, I could see the ocean through the hotels. No windows, and for some, no walls. Condominiums and other buildings outside the Bay Area are now just shells. One woman living there who attends Maranatha says that she hid in her bathroom, and when she came out, there was nothing left except a bathroom. Several of our seminary students, school teachers, and church and school families, and churches, and New Horizon lost roofs, and most everything under them. Streets were impassable, with electric and telephone poles, trees, water tanks, and every kind of debris blocking most. To make matters worse, incited by the mafia, but joined by too many others, there was pillaging of almost every store in town, and even some homes. Stores that survived the storm were broken into and emptied of all their goods, so anyone who didn't have food and water stored in their house didn't food and water, and no place to get it. For the first 5 days, there was basically no law in Acapulco, which is one of the reasons I stayed in my apartment. I find it very hard to describe the situation now. On the one hand, things are looking much better. The Mexican government sent in hundreds of electric company teams, plus cleanup crews with bulldozers and dump trucks, giving out purified water, food, and some monetary aid and household goods. Most of the town now has electricity and city water. People are beginning to get internet, a basic necessity for work and life in this day and age. Little by little, stores have opened up, so you can find basics if nothing fancy in town. Banks are back in business, and some people who have jobs that don't depend on internet or tourism are working. A few schools have started classes. We even had some tourists for the Christmas break. In all these areas, things seem to be getting back to normal. However, there is nothing normal about life for others. They are still living without roofs and may or may not have received any government aid. There continue to be streets with mountains of garbage and dead trees waiting for somebody to pick them up, and homes without electricity or water. People are being infected by mosquito-borne diseases, as well as others caused by contaminated water and insanitary conditions. The recovery process for large hotels and other tall buildings could take years. Because tourism is the main source of income for a large part of our population, people are scrambling to find other means of support or leaving town altogether. I asked the student pastor of one of our churches what percentage of the families in his congregation had lost their jobs, and the answer was 40%. He added that 40% were retired, so that actually only 20% have work right now. There are also some new normals, such as higher temperatures because of the loss of so many trees. Thankfully, although we had thousands of dollars worth of damage to our campus at New Horizon, it wasn't destroyed and most things were fixable, although not all have been fixed. We lost most of our trees, plus most of the contents of 4 classrooms. 2 had walls fall down, another lost a roof, and the 4th had major flooding after the windows were torn out. But the Lord sent incredible people to help us. School staff, with a little help from their kids, spent many days in cleanup. Teams from different churches cut trees, burned trees and damaged books, repaired gates and pipelines, drained and painted the swimming pool, and hauled off trash, and hauled off more trash. The professionals we hired to put rooms back together, replace windows, and repair the fence gave us good value at reasonable prices. It felt like a marathon, but we were finally able to start school again on December the 4th, a month and 10 days after the hurricane. Some children were still out of town, others have left town and are not coming back, but 73 were there. And it was really worth the effort to get school going again as quickly as we did. It was such a good thing for the students and teachers to resume their normal activities, be with their friends, have a chance to process the trauma they had endured, and see God's hand in everything that they were experiencing. We won't know until later how many more return to finish this school year. We have parents who are unable to pay, like Humberto's mom, whose source of income, 6 boats, ended up at the bottom of the ocean. Others won't be able to pay their full bill. We aren't turning anyone away, but we are scrambling to find ways to pay our teachers' salaries, as well as other bills and reconstruction. So, where has the church been in the midst of all this? Maranatha and Jesus of Nazareth, 2 of the churches in our presbytery, were able to open their doors on the Sunday after the hurricane, even with damages to their buildings. Few people were actually able to get there because of transportation difficulties, but it was a day of great joy as well as tears to find everyone still alive in spite of great losses. At this time, and through the coming weeks, we had opportunities to hear their stories of God's care through the storm. Many could see humor. I had been praying about a way to get rid of a billboard on the top story of my house and business. I never expected God to answer in this way. It's gone, as well as the top floor. Now when I bathe at night, I can enjoy looking at the stars and moon, and I have to bathe at night so no one can look at me. Others were very sweet, like the child who said, I started singing and it seemed like the noise wasn't so bad, and then we prayed and we weren't afraid. God is good all the time.
And I loved hearing one of our seminary students describe his joy at rescuing 90% of his theology books, basically all that they were able to save from the top floor of their house. Jesus of Nazareth became the hub for Samaritan's Purse activities, as well as for other organizations, coordinating efforts with all of the churches in the city. Interestingly enough, the church as a whole moved into action even before the city government. Samaritan's Purse is working closely with them, bringing their expertise to bear on the details of recovery and causing the church to shine its light in the city. In addition to this, Maranatha and our pastor, Adan Mendoza, have been receiving teams and distributing aid sent by our denomination's churches and individuals in Mexico. We are also funneling compassion funds for Mission to the World through them. Almost a week after the hurricane, it was possible to go to a town a couple of hours away to stock up on supplies, and churches from different parts of Mexico also started sending provisions. The first order of business was to get food and water to our families, people near the churches, and neighbors of church members. Visiting teams helped to re-roof some of our churches, cut trees, and clear debris in homes as well as the school, and generally do what needed to be done. We have also been using compassion funds to buy laminated roofing. Acapulco has very little flat land. The road by Maranatha Church goes up and up until we get to New Horizons School, and then goes up some more to Vista Hermosa and Quince de Julio, two isolated communities that haven't received very much attention in this crisis. We distributed food and water there, and on 3 occasions, different churches prepared and served meals for around 300 people. One weekend, we hosted a group who came to do post-trauma counseling, and on Saturday, they also visited people there. The week before Christmas, Maranatha took dinners to each community with piñatas and games for the children and a short program on the true meaning of Christmas. Compassion funds are helping buy materials like cement to help with rebuilding. I'm going into a lot of detail here, but it's because I want a lot of prayer. This hurricane has given us many opportunities to be merciful and open doors for future ministry. Right now, we are being welcomed into these communities, and I would love to see children's clubs and Bible studies developed in each one. But people are tired, and the initial adrenaline is running out. Please pray for vision and stamina to make long-term commitments, not just for Maranatha, but for all the churches in Acapulco. We can definitely see the hand of the Lord in all of this, from the straight-on double hit of the hurricane to the seemingly arbitrary way in which two neighbors in almost identical situations could have completely disparate degrees of damage to their homes and businesses. And although we can't understand all of God's purposes in this situation, we have already seen it open up doors for evangelism and discipleship, growing faith and strengthening and unifying the church in Acapulco. There's still a lot of trauma or post-trauma in Acapulco. It isn't always visible, but just notice the reaction of a child to a prognosis of rain. Is it going to happen again? As Christians, we can say with Psalm 4:8, "In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." But we need to be reminded of that sometimes. And non-Christians who saw how little control they really had over their lives need that peace too. Pray for my housemate Elvira, myself, and the people in our apartment building. This hurricane opened doors literally. We met neighbors we didn't even know lived there. And the situation has also opened doors to talk about the gospel to people who had despaired of hope then and really still have no future hope. If any of you are willing and able to help financially, there's still a need for support of New Horizon Christian School for reconstruction, for paying salaries in the next few months, and maybe for buying the property we're still renting. At the moment, Mission of the World is doing a feasibility study with us, and I'd really appreciate your prayers for wisdom. I am so grateful for your support and prayers for so many years. Thank you.
It's a joy to be here again. I like seeing a lot of new faces and a lot of of people that probably know about Mexico a good bit, and welcome. As I mentioned there, things have changed a lot in Acapulco. This video was done right at the beginning of January, which was 2 months after, a little bit over 2 months after, and things have been changing. As far as I mentioned that there have been steps going forward, and so we can say that in some ways I think the city is recovering a little bit faster than we would have thought. They just finished having the Mexican Open tennis tournaments in Acapulco, and it was a big I can't speak English now, I've got voice in my head. It was a lot of work, but a lot of people from outside Acapulco came in to redo the tennis courts. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that they were there. They may have just built new ones, I'm not sure. And working really hard to get enough hotel rooms for people to be able to stay in the hotels. And so it did happen, and I think they said they had 6,000 hotel rooms finally usable, and that they filled about 80%, which I was really surprised that they were able to do that much. And then there are other good things that are happening as far as little by little getting things going. On the other hand, we're still having, just in general, some big problems in Acapulco. One of them is the health. There's a disease called dengue, which is mosquito-borne, and the mosquitoes are having a heyday in Acapulco this year with all of the little extra added things. And so at one time we had 5 teachers right at school and 10 kids just all at once with dengue. Right at the moment we have one who's recovering who had dengue and COVID at the same time. And the dengue can be not too bad, and then it can be really bad because we've got hemorrhaging. And so we've had quite a few people from the church and from the school who've been in the hospital with it. So that's a big prayer request, that God would help us to get over the sicknesses which affect everything else you're doing. Another area that's been very difficult is the cartels. As I mentioned, they were there from the beginning, robbing and so on. And the Mexican government sent in the National Guard, who were very much involved in a lot of things of getting water and food to people and other things. And they made a promise that they were going to keep more of the National Guard there to try to control the cartel elements. And of course that didn't make the cartel elements very happy. So they've been, a lot of things have been going on. At one, they seem to have gone, for a while, they were doing a lot with public transportation. And so we had several days that kids couldn't get to school, or the students couldn't get to the seminary because the bus drivers were afraid to take out their buses because of our cartels. When they say they're going to do something, they do it, and they had killed a few people to start with, just to let you know, and burned one bus. And so they said, we'll burn it with the people in it if you take anybody. So of course nobody much wanted to do it. So this has been an on and off sort of thing, as they've asked for more protection from the government, and the government sends in more, but but it's not really completely doing the thing. I was just reading today that about a business that had been burned. It was boats and a couple of boats in the little store, whatever that thing is there. That was there was burned last night, and this is cartel work too. So there's fear and difficulty in getting things done just because of them at times. Also, it's like, what else is going to go on? So we've got people that are blocking traffic because they feel like they didn't get their fair share of the handouts from the government of new refrigerators or something, things like that. We have others that are blocking the road because they want more protection. And I also saw today that they had others that were blocking the road because some of the public schools disappeared completely, and they haven't gotten the public schools back in order yet, and so they want them to do it. So now they're striking, and so it seems like there's a whole lot of constant things that are keeping. We can't quite get settled down again. Hopefully, in the next few months that we will, but I'm not sure. But anyway, those are prayer needs. As far as the schools and things go, we do have, I think, 150 children now. And as I say, a lot of them are losing a lot of time. It's not going exactly the way it should, because there have been several days that they haven't been able to have classes because nobody's been able to get there, and because of sicknesses and so on. So it's sort of rocky, the work there at the seminary. Since it's hybrid and we have some that are on internet and some that are in class, the internet is just beginning to sort of function in most places, but we still have students that, it's not working today, I'm not getting a signal. So there's still a whole lot of things that are making ministry a little bit more difficult. But on the other hand, as I said, there's an openness right now that we haven't had maybe in other times. And just for example, the two communities that are way up high and generally much poorer, and they don't always accept strangers coming up, and they're not real sure about things like that. But when we took the people that were going up to counsel them, and they just started talking to people on the street, and they said, "We come from the Maranatha Church." And, "Oh yes, Maranatha. Yeah, they've been doing this and this for us." So they're right at the moment, if we go in the name of Maranatha, they're very happy to see us because we've been helping them. And so I'm just really praying that we can get something started here, Bible studies, children's clubs. But in order to do that, you have to have people who can do it. And some of the same people from the church are the ones that are doing everything. And so it's a little hard for them to do that. But I would appreciate your prayers that the church would, and not just Maranatha Church, but all of the churches in Acapulco, because they've all had the opportunity to serve their neighbors with Samaritan's Purse, with other materials that have come in, but they don't. But hopefully they're going to see this as opening doors, and they're going to go through those doors, is my prayer for that. And as far as personally, many people ask, well, how did you do in the hurricane? I was, like I said, we didn't expect it. And even when they started saying Category 5, we didn't have any idea what Category 5 meant. Happily, the place that I'm living was a really, really strong building. It was very well built. So everybody lost the windows and glass doors and things like that. But but we didn't lose walls. And at least as far as my room, some of them had furniture flying around and everything, but where I was, even though we lost some glass doors, nothing flew around.
Thank the Lord.
Thank the Lord. And we had basically some flooding, and that was all that we had. And there was a place that we could be pretty safe. We didn't get there quite on time, but we got there in time. But basically, ours was okay. The apartment building, we've just been living there for about a year and a half now. But really didn't know very many of the neighbors. You knew them because we got in the elevator together and said hello and so on. But it was pretty much nobody's around during the day, and you just see people going in and out. And it was different then. Suddenly at about 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody is trying to see how's everybody doing, and you're still alive. And it really opened doors. Literally, we needed a doctor, we found a doctor. So other people needed somebody to help them get water out. They found somebody to get water out. And we've had the opportunity to make friends with several people in the condominium. Lord willing, when I go back, I would really like to do a Bible study with them. I've been investigating something that's called See Jesus and learning about it. And it seems like the kind of a study that people would be willing to come. Yeah, I could go and listen to that. It would be very scary, maybe, and it might be interesting. But I am praying that the Lord would work there. I'll just give you a few people to pray for, if you don't mind. In the apartment, there's a lady named Rebecca and her daughter Fernanda, her 13-year-old. They were on the floor above us, and they really went hysterical. The mother, I think, more than the daughter, but by the time the daughter followed the mother, she was pretty hysterical too. As we've been talking to them, the mother says that her mother was a very, very strong Catholic, but she was very judgmental. And God is going to get you for this, and you're so bad, and God, and so on. And that her father left the family and remarried, but then after that he became a Christian, but he became a very judgmental Christian, and God is going to get you, you're so bad, and so on. And so she's like, that's not the way my God is. My God would never be angry at anybody. My God would never do. But I'm not, I don't let them talk to my daughter about religion at all. I don't want her to grow up with that. So the daughters basically had nothing. But we've had opportunities to talk a little bit and sort of say, maybe you need to find out what God is really like, that he's not like what they're saying, but he's also not like what you're saying, because you're just making of God the way you want him to be. And so she's, as I say, very nervous, and we have a little earthquake, and she's running down. I don't want to be alone with this. We have earthquakes fairly often too. But anyway, just pray for them and others in the building, that the Lord might reach them through us, and that he would give us the ability to talk to them and so on. I'd also like to ask you to pray for Benito. He's the student that was so happy that his 90% of his books were saved. But Benito is a chef, and his work schedule isn't real good for the hours when we have seminary classes. But he also he never graduated from junior high. He never studied very much, and because he didn't like to study. But now he really likes to study the Bible, but he feels really bad because he says, I go to classes and I just can't do all that writing the answers for the questions. So I feel that I can't really participate, and I feel like the teachers are going to be, saying, what do you want to have me in the class for? So he gets very discouraged. But I see him as a person that has a whole lot of love for the Lord, a love for other people, and a lot of possibilities. He's an elder in one of the churches, and in this church, the elders preach more than I like. But at any rate, he decided he needed to learn to preach also. And so his first sermon was read, and it wasn't his. He read it. It was an interesting sermon, except that he sort of read it in a monotone, but it wasn't his. The next time it was his, but he still read it in a monotone, and which made it not very interesting. And then fairly recently, he got up to preach. He didn't read anything except the Bible. He stood beside. He used expression, body movements, everything. He had everybody just listening like that. He was Christ-centered. He was exegetical. He actually said what the Bible, all of the parts of what was going on, read the passage and see what it says instead of jumping every place. Good application, everything. And I'm going, what happened to you? He says, well, somebody told me that I was really boring when I was reading. And then I was reading this book that you gave us in the seminary, this Christ-centered preaching, and I just loved it. I wasn't doing my other classes because I was reading the book. And I worked on this sermon for 2 months, but then last night I woke up at 2 a.m. and I couldn't remember one word of it. And I never could write it down. And I'm going, that's okay, you don't have to write it down. If you can preach it like that, you don't have to write it down. Just make a few notes if you need to. But anyway, Benito is having his ups and downs, and right at the moment he's a little bit discouraged. And I told him, I'm getting everybody to pray for you.
Was that Benito Cruz?
That's Benito Cruz. So anyway, appreciate your prayers for Benito, for Rebecca and her daughter Fernanda, and for the Bible study. And basically, that's all I have to say, unless somebody has a question.
How was the airport? Was the airport damaged a lot, or?
The airport was damaged. At first they couldn't. It seems like well, at first it was flooded and everything else. So I think for a few days they couldn't get planes in, but then they could get the planes in. But the airport had the second story is where you went for.
Control tower.
Well, it was where you went to get your plane, and that whole thing was just destroyed, the whole top floor, and other things. When Samaritan's Purse would come in, they couldn't bring the big airplanes that were bringing supplies to our airport. They had to take them to Toluca, which is about 8 hours away, and then drive them in. And the airport is still not working very, very well. They just have a few airplanes.
So how did you come
actually.
out this time?
Well, I was able to get out, but I actually had to go a day early to Mexico City in order to get out, because they only had one plane a day, and it was going to leave Acapulco after I was supposed to have left Mexico, so they're still having problems. But they actually started using it somewhat after a few days, because they were giving free flights to anybody that wanted to leave. And a lot of people did, because it took several weeks to get electricity and water and things like that. And be able to get in and out. You all don't have any questions? Mhm.
¿Habla español?
Sí,
Yo también.
sí. Muy bien, muy bien.
Yo tengo dos preguntas.
Ok.
¿Qué es lo más tarde que se ha acostado a dormir usted?
What's the latest I've gone to sleep at night? Well, some nights it's pretty late.
A la hora mexicana.
The night of the hurricane, it was about 2:30, but not to sleep exactly, but to try.
Are your children in your schools, are they split up by age groups per teacher, or are they all together, and what's the age group of them?
We have 170 children, and we go from preschool through 9th grade, and they are divided by ages. All of preschools together is Montessori, and as a matter of fact, thank you for asking about the school, because I forgot to say another big prayer request. The school, we had to do a lot of repairs this time, and we have been in the building and the place where we are for 9 years, and it was a house, so we remodeled and added and all sorts of things. But we've got to the point where we really can't fit anybody else in, and we would really like to be able to go through high school, but we can't fit anybody in. In order to do that, we would need to build, but it's at the point where we don't want to put any more money into something that, we can't build a big building in a place that's not ours. So we're trying to buy it, and it's going to cost around $800,000. Mission to the World, which is the mission organization of the Presbyterian Church, when you want to do a project that big and have it coming through Mission to the World, you have to get their approval of a capital campaign. So I've been trying to do that. And as I've been talking to the people there, they say, well, if it's not feasible, we don't want to say, go ahead. So we need to check and figure out if it's going to be feasible or not. And as I was talking with them, they said, well, if you had sort of the promise of maybe half that amount, then that would be very feasible, probably. And so he says, well, if just look around, and if you can find somebody that would give you $100,000, and 4 or 5 people that would do that, would promise it, you've got it. And I'm going, I don't know anybody that has $100,000. And so the second church that I spoke at in the beginning of February, I was talking about this, and I said, I don't know anybody that has $100,000. If any of you do, love to have it. A couple of days later, I got an email saying, we'll give you, if you get the capital campaign, then we promise $50,000 to start it and $50,000 at the midpoint. So I'm going, okay, now I know somebody that has $100,000. And so I've talked at other churches and things. And last weekend, somebody else said, we want to give you $100,000 if you get the capital campaign. So now I know 2 people that have $100,000 that they can give. I only need 3.
Lonnie said he's got it. He's raising
He's
his
got
hand.
it. Yeah, he's raising his hand. He's going over here at 3, so I'm going, oh, you're the 3rd? Yeah, go for it. Anyway, and several other people have said that they would be willing to help something, but they don't have $100,000. But anyway, That's,
With the hurricane and everything, are y'all able to feed the children during the school that they're there? Are they there like they are here in the United States? You know, as far as getting the meals and stuff.
we didn't have school for over a month. And when we started back, the children had to bring their lunch. That was it. We do have a cooperative where they can buy something they want, or some of them bring the food. But the food situation was very, very difficult, as I said, because there was nothing in any store in Acapulco, basically. And for the first few days, you really couldn't get out to go anyplace else. After that, you could go to Chilpancingo, which is a couple of hours away. Well, it'd be about 4 hours with the situation of trying to get out of town with everything. But, and I was able to go the following week with some money that I'd gotten from the Compassion Fund for Mission of the World, that we were going to buy supplies, and get to the grocery stores there, and there are lines of about 20, 25 people at each cash register trying to get out, and they're all from Acapulco. It's like, oh yeah, how did you all do? See, but the people in Chilpancingo didn't. If they wanted to get something from the stores, they had to wait. But and for a long time, the government was bringing in packages of food, and we were bringing in, and churches were sending us, and it took several weeks before some of the stores began to open. It was sort of interesting, because if you go down the street, you'd see another store that would say, "We're open now," and then a few days later, "We're open now." But and when they started opening, Coca-Cola was the main thing that everybody wanted. And they were selling Coca-Colas for about 4 times what you usually had to get Coca-Colas. But they were one of the first things that actually came when they were able to get things in.
Are you able to take supplies back with you, flying back? How much are you able to actually?
Right now, I mean, I wouldn't take food for people or anything like that. What I'm taking back this time are some study books that I'm going to be using with the seminary and things like that. But now you can get basics, anything enough. You can't necessarily get a lot of things you would want, but you could get all the things that you actually had to have, probably.
Will you be doing the Music Institute? Can you speak about that? I really appreciate that ministry in Acapulco.
We will be doing it. Little Moons know about that. They were involved in it many times. But yes, we are planning to do it. I'm just hoping that they're not going to switch school schedules on us to say, okay, we lost 2 months, so you're going to have to, we're not going to give you any summer vacation or something like that. But we are planning to have the 2 weeks of Music Institute still. And I need some violin. I need teachers, so you could pray that I'll get all the teachers I need for it too, especially violin. So, but anyway, if any of you have $100,000 that you would like, Christian school is really, really important, and it's a real blessing. And we're going to be training up the next generation. Or if you have a little less and you want, I mean, we'll take anything, no problem.
All right. Thank you. Very good. Thank you so much. All right. She'll be around if you want to ask questions more, I think. Staying in town, right? So.
Well.
Sort of.
Just to meet on college and just tonight.
For tonight, yeah. Thank you for coming. We're delighted to see all of you. Take some food with you if you will. Do something with it. We need to get rid of it. And have a beautiful evening and a good Lord's Day tomorrow. right?
Do you have the envelopes? Something that put money in something if you tonight.
And I forgot. If anybody wants to get my prayer letters,
Do you have them handy?
I've got prayer cards. Yes, I've got them handy if I remember.
There's some,
I'll pass them out if you have them.
What if I get one round of that for you, Bill?
More around certain sphere.
I need to sort
How it works here. Trying to figure out how this thing works. Okay.
Stick together like you're supposed to, but chase it really well.
What?
That's what matters.
Yeah, but people look at it and they'll say, enjoying. I said, no, that's not what it says. So I don't want to. But so everybody always, they misread it, that we have to correct it. Well, we have here, we have I get them confused, I think.
Oh, Kim said, how do I get out of the donation? I said, well, send you a check in and we'll get addresses up here on this paperwork. But it said but she was holding money in her hand. I said, if you want to give her cash to her, I'm sure she would be grateful for it. So,
Okay, well, we need to head out, but I have heard information.
yeah, there's the Missionary Night address. That's the best thing.
Yeah, my name now is
But obviously she can need some cash. So thanks.
Come over.
Oh, I didn't want to miss it. There's a Spanish couple that came to yeah. And did you
I would love to chat with them again. Somewhere,
but I can always
Senor.
yeah, I'd like to do that, and I'm sure they would too, because they love to be with other people who can speak Spanish but also know English.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay.
To practice that. It's good for him to keep practicing.
Vicky and Elias.
Ed, are y'all coming over tomorrow afternoon later after your naps or whatever?
Why?
Huh?
Why?
To take your blood sugar.
Oh, well, let me eat some of that. And I'll eat some of that and I'll come over, okay?
No. No, you're being bad. You don't want to do that.
Did you hit the spot? I wasn't sure what kind of.
Really don't want to.
Actually, I'll just do the bag.
Lynn?
Yeah, exactly.
I invited Ed to come over tomorrow and check us out and stuff. But he's